Today we have Lakita P. She's a mother, grandmother, a fully licensed social worker, and she's the sole proprietor of a private practice agency, Aspire Solutions LLC, where she provides mental health therapy, and she is above all else a child of the Most High. Welcome, Lakita.
Thank you, ladies. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So did
We're
we get
happy to
that
have
bio right?
you.
Or
You
do you want have
did.
you want to add?
That sounded amazing. She hit it.
Good, 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 good.
All right. So today we're talking about mental health, and we know mental health is a state of well-being, right? It determines how we handle stress, how we handle our relationships with others, how we make choices. It's important in every stage from childhood to adolescence through adulthood. Um, According to a report by the Mental Health First Aid, over 40% of those with clinical mental illness who are at risk, sorry, of a mental health um, illness, only 25% of those um, seek help or want other people to know what they're going through, you know, mentally. So
So,
first, Lakita, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? We know that you're a mental health therapist, but if you can expound on that, please.
Yeah, for sure. So before I became a social worker, I always knew that I wanted to work in the mental health field. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I always knew I wanted to work in the helping field. Mental health was probably not my choice, as I was pretty ignorant to, what all it entailed and the importance of it. And so, more about me is outside of being a mom and a grandmother, I always found myself in positions where I was the leader in my friend groups. I always like to take charge. I always like to um, be the one to see the best in people in every situation. And this is something that I don't talk about a whole lot, but I went to Ann Kellogg for my elementary education. And if you don't know about Kellogg, back when I was in grammar school, it really was the first school that I encountered individuals with disabilities. And they were, embedded into our general education. We had gym class, we went outside together. We didn't necessarily always have classes together, but there was a few. And so I always found myself, you know, when those kids would get picked on, I would feel some type of way. It would make my insides kind of curl. And so I always knew like I just wanted to find the best possible solution and always give people the best outcome that I had control of. And so that's kind of who I am as a person. Innately, I'm just a helper. Sometimes that can be unhealthy, but I try to be as healthy as I can and being a helper because we know that, when there's people who are willing to give their last, to give their all, there are people in this world who will take and take and take to no
Right.
avail. And
yeah,
so I have at my core had to find balance. I've had to, thank God, find Jesus, about 8 years ago when I joined my church home and to help me through. So innately, I'm just a helper. And that's what I enjoy doing the most.
So, Lakita, you used to beat up the bullies.
I didn't beat them up, but I didn't like it. I did probably say a few words that I wouldn't say today to them, but I didn't like it. It really would, you know, it would really hurt me to the core. And I didn't know, that was just who I was as a person. Like everybody deserves fair treatment. And
Right.
right.
they were in school with us. So obviously they needed to be there. They looked different. And so I took that into my own parenting. Like I wanted my kids to know that there's going to be people you encounter that don't look like you, that don't operate like you, that, may even be making loud noises or doing things that's out of the norm. You
Right.
still treat them with dignity and
Right,
respect.
right.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay. You ready for question number 2? So, can you tell us about your journey into the mental health field? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, like I said, I did not foresee myself being in the mental health field at all in the least bit. After I got my bachelor's degree in social work, I was kind of just job searching. I did an internship at Grace Health, and I did a lot of work study at the Safe Place. And so I ended up volunteering there. Then I did a work study, and then I started working there just like as a house manager, which didn't require any clinical skills at all. Um,
Okay.
and then I became a foster care worker right after I got my bachelor's degree. And that was eye-opening for me. And the one thing that I took from foster care, I think, it was poor timing, and the system in itself has a lot of flaws that we know. And I was young, I was fresh out of school. It it wasn't the job for me at the time, but in hindsight, looking back, now that I am a qualified licensed mental health social worker, there was a lot of mental health challenges that those parents had, that if they had gotten the proper training and proper education, maybe things might have turned out differently with their kids. And so I just actually was doing an email blast through Indeed, got a call back from Summit Point, didn't know what Summit Point was, hadn't heard of it, born and raised in Battle Creek, rolled by it all the time. I did not know what it was. Um, got the interview, and even after the interview, when I got hired, I still didn't know what I was in for. And so I became a case manager, and I started learning, all the aspects of the DSM diagnosis, the resources in the community that people needed, where we were lacking in our community, the cries out for help, seeing children. I worked mostly with adults through case management, but there were times kids would come into our office and things like that. And I had a friend a working friend that was a crisis worker. And she would always tell me, like, go get your master's degree, go get your master's. Mind you, I had gotten my master's in family studies, but I couldn't
Okay.
become licensed. Uh, and I had no intention on going back. But in order to do the crisis role at Summit Point, I needed to be a fully licensed or needed to be a licensed master's level social worker.
Okay.
So I made that decision to go back to school while I was doing case management. And I ended up on the crisis team, and I absolutely fell in love. I knew right away that is where I wanted to be. That is where I thrived. That's where I got the most fulfillment. And it's really difficult work. Uh, it was stretching and challenging, but it was like that unknown, the element of unknown does something for me. So I never knew who was walking through the door. I never knew, what the circumstance would be. It could be a day I saw 10 people. There was days I saw 2 people, but that is where I felt like I found the most fulfillment, and I knew that's where I wanted to be, and I was in the right spot.
All right. So,
Okay.
with that, have you ever struggled with your mental health?
Yeah, good question. I will say if you had asked me that before I became a mental health professional, I would have said no. But certainly, there was a time where I had my third child and I experienced postpartum depression, something that, I thought was kind of normal. I just wasn't feeling like myself. But I started having a lot of psychosomatic symptoms. And if you don't know what psychosomatic is, that's like headaches, stomach aches, feelings of anxiety, things but I didn't know that's what it was. Um, I never had the thoughts of wanting to hurt myself or hurt my kids, but I thought that I had a brain tumor. I thought I was gonna die. Like there was all these like
Wow.
irrational thoughts
No.
that were happening. It was all a result of postpartum depression. And so later I learned also I probably made it through school, uh, with undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder that morphed into adulthood to ADD. I've just lived with it. I functioned with it, but it explains that need to have that crisis world, the last minute, the kind of procrastination that I have, the
Mhm.
lack of focus, things like that. And so I have, in my own world, had to scale back to say I can't continue to pour into others and to do for others and not do for myself.
Mm.
And so I had to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, I've struggled with anxiety. I've struggled with depression here and there. You know, I've struggled with um, premenstrual dysphoric disorder for the majority of my life. I didn't know that that's what those things were back then. But now that I do know, you know, to know better is to do better. And so I couldn't be preaching to the people that I help every day that they need to come to their appointments, they need to take their meds, they need to do all the things that I wasn't doing it. And so for me, my mental health is important. It is easy as a healthcare provider, no matter what sector you're in, to kind of forget about yourself first. And so that's something I try to be more intentional about.
So how does that play into with your physical health? How does mental health, and physical health um relate, or does it relate to
It
each
does
other?
relate. And that's one thing I think as even a community mental health in my, you know, my full-time job at Summit Point, where we have to acknowledge that it's the whole person. And if your mental health is not well, 9 times out of 10, your physical health is not. Like if I'm, you know, if I'm in a season of depression, I'm not showering like I'm supposed to. I'm not eating like I'm supposed to. I'm not sleeping like I'm supposed to. I lack motivation. So therefore, I'm not getting up and I don't feel like going to work out. And we talk about, you know, you don't have to go to the gym to work out. You can walk your house. You
Right.
can walk to the curb and back, whatever you're doing to be physical just to be moving, like having desk jobs, get up and take a lap. Like that
Right.
work's gonna be there.
Mhm.
Just get up and move around a little bit. But if your mental health is not well, 9 times out of 10, I mean, that's not a accurate stat, but you know, the majority, your physical health is going to suffer as well because you just don't have the capacity mentally to take care and manage your physical health.
Right. Right. Yeah, thank you.
I love that. Quickly, I want to say, I think you earned yourself an invite back to talk about that adult attention deficit disorder.
Yes.
That's what I get for talking too much.
Yes, that's what you get.
Yeah, but it's a real thing, right?
It
It,
is.
It's a
it
real
It
is.
is.
thing. So
And
it's
there's a
It
not
is.
lot.
just
You'd be
kids.
surprised how many adults are just functioning with
Yeah.
ADD, unmedicated, and don't know that there's
Mhm.
something that could potentially help them.
Right. Right.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
How do you think your relationship with Jesus impacts your wellness?
Oh, significantly. Man, when I first, so as a child, my parents sent me to church and all the gambits. I was baptized and all those things. Through high school, early adulthood, I went to various churches just trying to find the church home. I knew church was important. I believed in God, and but I didn't come up in a household where it was like you got to go to church and you got to believe. Like, so
Mhm.
I always wanted to develop my own relationship with God. I experienced some church hurt from some local churches. So I would go for a period of time and then I would quit and then I wasn't going for years. And so I really, once I developed my own relationship with God, that was the breaking point for me holistically. It was, you know, me as a parent, me as a girlfriend, or even in my singlehood, it was me as a daughter. It was me at work and then me at home. But I never had that foundation of me with God. And so I was seeking that, I was yearning that. And when I finally got it, everything else that I was trying to do on my own came together.
Mhm.
And I mean, yes, I had to put some work in, but it was less strenuous. I could look back, once I developed my relationship with God, I could look back and say, that was not me at all that got through that situation. That was all God.
Right. Right.
You know, pre
Yeah.
belief and, you know, establishing that relationship, I'm like, I did this, I did that. You know, I got myself from here to there.
Right.
But the reality is that was God.
That was Jesus.
Mhm.
That was all him. And I can't thank him enough, even today, for everything that he's brought me through, everything that he even put me through, and all those things to come, because he is the center of my well-being. And when I can't, he can.
Right.
Amen.
What is that scripture? When you're weak,
I am
what is it
strong.
when you're
I am
weak?
strong in your weakness. He is
Yeah,
your
he
strength.
made you strong. So
hmm
for sure. Most definitely.
So, what are some ways that people could support a loved one who's going through a mental health challenge or crisis?
First things first is acknowledge it. Acknowledge that in this world we have mental health challenges.
Right.
To normalize it, to make it a normal part of day-to-day conversation, to help your family and family members know, even for yourself, it's okay not to be okay. It's
Mhm.
not okay to stay there.
Right.
Amen. I
And
love that.
I think, you know, when you have family members, and I too, not only have I dealt with some things myself, I've had family members who have had mental health challenges. And that's one of the hardest things you can do. I can help a stranger all day long and it not bother me.
Mhm.
But the moment it's somebody you love or care for, now you got to be able to put those feelings aside and say, I am doing this because you need it and it's for the best.
Right.
And that's not always
Yeah,
easy.
it's
And I
hard.
had to come to realization that I'm not going to always be liked in that.
Mhm.
Right.
But you're going to always know that I had you at the center of being the best that you could be. And if there's a way that I can step in and do that, that's what I'm going to do. So I would just say, you know, especially in the Black community, not to isolate anyone, but in the Black community, you know, it's unheard of to have these mental health challenges.
Mhm.
For Black men, you're weak if, you know, you show any feeling, if you're
Right.
crying, if you reach out for help. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. I think, and this is solely Lakita, you're weak if you're not willing to do the things to do that you need to do to make you better.
I like
Because
that.
we all know hurt people hurt
Hurt
people.
people. Right.
And
Yes.
it's not okay to live in that space where I'm going to continue to just do what I want to do, no matter who I hurt in the process,
Right.
because it's just a ripple effect. And, you know, the more, if I don't get the help that I need, that's going to trickle down to my children, to their children, and so on and so forth.
Generational.
And that's where the generational
Mhm.
pieces come in, where we have a right to seek mental health care, just like we seek medical care.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you break your arm, you're going to the hospital.
Mhm.
If your brain is hurt, what are we doing?
Right.
And people don't look at it like that. But mental health is a disease,
Mhm.
and there's several of them, and not all of them can you do on your own. So it's okay to seek the help that you need. It's okay if you stop and you're afraid to go back. Just go back, get up and do it again.
Mhm.
But what's not okay is knowing that there's something wrong and not speaking up on it or not doing something about it.
Right. So, you mentioned African Americans not seeking help on a regular basis, right?
hmm
Now, it's becoming more, you're hearing about it more where African Americans are paying attention, right? But it's still not enough.
Still not enough.
It's
Yeah.
not enough. So how do we get more Black people, more African Americans, more brown people to see the importance of seeking help?
this is a start right here, right? It's about speaking up, speaking out. Individuals like yourself and Brandy doing podcasts, raising awareness, again, normalizing the conversation. As a crisis worker, and even when I was a case manager, the amount of younger, and when I say younger, I would say 19 to like 25 Black men that end up in there because the court sent them. They don't want to be there. There's nothing wrong. Um, but that you discover that, it's really just in their upbringing. It's the lack of understanding, it's the lack of education that they've received to know what's out there to help them and to know that it's okay. And so I'm just one person, but if we have a lot of I people who take that stance to say it's okay
Right.
to seek therapy.
Right.
It's
And it's
okay
not weak.
for
You're not a
somebody to
weak
be in your
person.
business.
Right.
Because we quick to
Yeah.
say, I don't want nobody in my business. I don't want nobody in my business, but I do want to get the help.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And so I think it's really about every person doing their part. The more educated we can be, the more awareness we raise, the more we normalize it. And to know, we put people and systems on these pedestals, but they're human too. So you may get a
Right.
therapist that don't mesh well. That's
Right.
okay.
Mhm.
Find another one. You will find one that works.
Right.
But
Right.
sometimes, we live in this like right now culture. Like I need it right now. You better fix me today. I come to one session and I better be fixed. And that's just
Right.
not,
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
not real. It's not
Right.
reality. And so
Mhm.
I think it starts right here. Like, there's a ton of other podcasts out there in the world that you just have to raise awareness. Somebody has to stand up and say, enough is enough.
Right.
What can we do? And
Mhm.
if we can't do anything, what can I do? And just
Right.
be the change that we wish to see.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons Brandy and I wanted to start this podcast, right? To bring individuals like yourself on, experts in their respective fields, and individuals who have gone through, right, either mental health or struggled with their physical health, um, just to bring that awareness, just to bring that awareness. So, what are some common misconceptions, do you think?
Common misconceptions. I think I said it earlier, but something that I used to hear a lot is like mental health isn't real. Like there's no such thing. Somebody who struggles with clinical depression, you can't tell them to just get up and
Yeah.
they're going to be okay
Right.
because they truly have a chemical imbalance. There's something that's off in their brain. Our chemicals aren't doing what they're supposed to do because they're lacking somewhere. And so sometimes I think even with family, it's easy to see that person who's sleeping every day, all day, who's not working, who's not
Right.
getting up and cleaning up. And you're like, all you got to do is just get up and do it. Well, sometimes it's not that easy. So
Mhm.
some of those misconceptions of, if you just go get you, I don't know, go get a man, then you're gonna be happy. Nope, because we have to find self-fulfillment.
Right.
If you
True.
do it at the value of another person, as soon as that's
Mhm.
removed, you're right back to where you're at.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Other misconceptions, like I said, in the Black community, it's one of those things of it is not, don't go down there telling them people your business, don't trust others. You never know what they're gonna do with your information. That is not at all what we're here for.
Right. Right.
I'm here to truly be of help, but I'm always gonna give you that disclaimer of if there is reason to believe that you're gonna hurt yourself or hurt somebody else or inflict harm,
Right.
I'm obligated as a
Right.
licensed social worker to let
Mandated
somebody know that.
reporter.
Yeah.
I got to report that. The one thing that I pride, and I think more social workers and therapists, if they did this, is the transparency behind that. I'm not gonna ever do it behind your back.
Yeah. Oh my goodness,
You're gonna
Lakita.
know.
Yeah.
No, I tell my students all the time, when I worked as a home-based therapist, as a
Mhm.
recovery coordinator, I always went through my spiel, right? I'm a mandated reporter if I suspect abuse. I said, but one thing about me,
I'm gonna tell you.
I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell
yeah.
you.
I'm gonna tell you. You gonna
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
And
Because
and
you're
the
the first person other than myself, seriously, the first person I've heard say that.
oh yeah. You know what? I can take it. You can be mad at me, you can be upset with me, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna leave here and I'm gonna know I did everything I could do
Right,
to
Mhm.
help you.
right,
And if I don't feel good about you going home because we can't safety plan or we
right,
can't come to some kind of resolution, I'm gonna let you know.
right,
Right.
I am reporting this.
right.
We can do what we
Call
need to do
together.
here. Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
But there
yeah.
comes a point, and in my job, through Summit Point, we petition people for involuntary mental health services. So those are the people who have a significant risk to themselves or others and unwilling to seek treatment. And so sometimes we have to get a court order to say you are going to seek this treatment. And in the midst of talking with individuals and trying to convince them to get the help that they need, sometimes it's beyond their control.
Right,
They have something going on, a delusion, hallucinations, things like that. That is beyond their control. But some of it is just the lack of care and regard to their life or anybody else's.
mhm,
And in that, if I'm with you and I'm petitioning and say I'm waiting for police, I'm letting you know, like, hey, I don't feel good about you going home. I just don't think you can be safe. And I want to know that, when I go home and go to sleep tonight, that you are safe. And if that means I need to get you to the hospital, that's what I'm going to do. And I know you upset. I know you didn't want to go, but this is for the best. You can take it out on me. Don't take it out on anybody else.
right,
It's me who's made that
right,
decision. I said, but I'm also, licensed, and I have to make sure that I give you the full care and concern here. It just trumps that. And so I've never had a person that I'm aware of
mhm,
come back and say, what you did hurt me more.
Right.
right,
Right.
It
right.
was always, I wouldn't have done that without you.
Right. Thank
Mm.
The
you.
ones that I have gotten, feedback from, they've come back and some people have thanked me, like, you saved my life that day. You
Mhm,
you showed up, you cared, you did. I could have let you just walk out the door.
right,
Mhm.
I mean, that would be my license. I wouldn't do that. But,
right,
at the end of the day, we have to know that we're giving you everything that we can to make sure that you're safe and your well-being does matter.
right, right.
I
I
like
agree.
that.
But I find it interesting that you do that. Yeah, I didn't know anyone else who did.
Lakita, something that you said just a minute ago, it prompted a question when you were talking about why African Americans are resistant to seeking help. And you said, you can't tell someone who's diagnosed with clinical depression to just get up and kind of walk it off. Why or in which way do you think, as African Americans or our Black community, how can we get a message to those who, even when a family member has a diagnosis and they kind of don't want to accept it and believe it, and they're still kind of saying, just get up and do something. How do you think we can start to change that narrative or that
Hmm,
conversation?
good question.
The one thing, so two things. QPR training is amazing for that. That questioning and persuade, like, if you just ask the question sometimes to people, a
Mhm.
lot of times we shy away from it, right?
Okay.
But to ask somebody blatantly, are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Are you having thoughts of wanting to die? Have you thought about wanting to hurt someone else or someone else dying? Sometimes we got to be specific, and sometimes we shy away from those questions because it's a common misconception that if I say it to them, that now they're thinking about it.
Right,
Absolutely not.
Right.
That is not true in the
right.
least bit. But the one thing that I would say that I've learned that works is for the person to show up with them, like, come on, I'll go with you. Let's go down here together. I'll walk this walk with you.
Like that.
You don't have to do it on your own. I know you don't think anything is wrong, but I'm telling you, this is what I've seen. This is how you used to be. This is what you're doing now. And it's okay to be that way for a minute. We talk about that in grief, right? Everybody has a time frame where they grieve and they go through the cycles of grief. And everyone is different, but at the point when it's impacting your day-to-day life, at the point where you have no care or concern for anything going on around you. You can't get up, you can't eat, you can't sleep. You're not cleaning, you're not managing yourself. You're disheveled. Sometimes you're smelling, whatever those things are. And that's what you say to them. Like, you keep introducing it. Like, I'll go with you. Let's go today. I'm off today. Or just try to get them out the house. One step might be just to get to the front porch today. Let's go sit on the front porch and catch some air, one step at a time. But when it gets to the point where you know that they are so ill and just not acknowledging it, that's when you have to do something else. And that's where that petition process comes in at.
Okay.
And there's some criteria that goes into, petitioning, and, the judge want to make sure before we're like revoking somebody's rights to be out and, in the community, that we've done all that we can do. But you start having those conversations, maybe call the crisis team and say, this is what, is going on with this person. Are we there yet? Are we at the point of being able to petition? But really, I think the main thing is showing up for them. They need the village. They're going to say they don't need it. They're going to push it away. They'll do things. It's even more difficult when you have those people who are more reactive, abusively, verbally, cuss you out, don't want to deal with you. That's going to happen too in some ways they present. But I do truly believe the more a person has somebody by their side to walk with them, the more apt they are to continue and want to do the work to get better.
Right.
What about that?
It's a lot of empathy, finding that empathy for them. Like, I might not have gone through it, but I'm here. I understand if all of this had happened to me, I would be feeling the same way. But I can't let you sit here and, and sit in your sorrows. What are we doing to make it better? Like, I'll give you your moment.
Right.
Have your moment. I'm not going to take that away from anybody. But now it's time to put in work and get that action going.
I love that. I love it. How would you suggest someone go about setting healthy boundaries for their mental health?
Oh, we love boundaries. So it really depends on the circumstance of what's going on. We have some people who are extremely codependent. And when you have somebody who's codependent, we have to be careful not to enable those bad behaviors. And so us as people, and this is what I see a lot, is parents, moms and dads coming in saying, their son needs help with alcohol addiction or with meth addiction or with their bipolar disorder. They keep losing jobs because they can't function day to day. But mom or dad or whomever that support person continues to bail them out of, with money, paying their rent, buying their groceries, and not, and I don't want to say forcing, but not healthily getting them to the point where you got to go get some help for what's going on so you can successfully work. Because that's what we have to do as adults. Now, there are some people that is just not going to happen and it's not possible. And then that's a different story. But there are people who are capable of doing the things that they need to do, but they don't because they have people who keep bailing them out. And so boundaries, it's hard as a parent, it's hard as a sister or, brother, to set boundaries. But sometimes you have to say no and let that no be a no. And especially in our substance abuse world, it's hard to see your loved one addicted, losing everything that they've worked for, selling off, family jewels and all the things. But if I continue to give them money to feed their habit, I'm not doing them any good either. And sometimes that's, learning the manipulation that they do because they'll guilt trip you.
Oh,
You have
yeah.
to be a strong individual sometimes to say no and stick with it,
Right.
Yeah.
because those people who have lived that life know how to get around. They know what to say, they know what to do.
Right.
They will have you backed in the corners before you know it.
Right.
And
Mhm.
now you're trying to figure out how to get out of it, you know. So it's okay to give a little and walk alongside, but you have to set those boundaries with them to say, okay, but what are you doing to get out of this situation? Because
Mhm.
we can't keep doing this. You have to go get help. I'll go with you to get the help. There I am still trying to be your support. I can't support you this way, but I can support you that way.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And then the second part of that is the boundaries you need for yourself, because you can't keep giving and giving and giving and giving and then not replenishing yourself,
Right.
because then you're gonna burn out.
Right.
And that's what people tend to do, um, because they're the helper and they
Right.
helping
Mhm.
everybody, right? Because they
Mhm.
know if I call Lakita, she gonna give it to me. She gonna drop what she doing and she gonna be right there.
You
Come
know,
And
I
here.
heard,
then I was gonna say, and then the one time you say no,
Ooh,
the world ends.
it's over.
I've heard somebody say, and it's so true, right? Givers are gonna give, but takers,
Yes.
you better believe they're gonna take.
Go
And keep
take.
taking and
Mhm.
keep taking
Yeah.
And
and
keep
keep
Yeah.
taking.
Yeah.
taking.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And keep
Absolutely.
taking.
Yes. Um, Go ahead, Brandy. You look like you got a question.
Oh no, I was gonna go on to the next one, but it might be on you.
No, go ahead.
So Jesus said that believers should be like salt and light. Can you tell us what statement is your life making? Oh, you're on mute.
My bad. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Um, what statement? I think who I am at my core and just what I represent in general, and just something that I've had to adapt to. I've already said it here today is you can't pour from an empty cup. And that resonates with me, along with no is the question, it's the answer, it's the final statement.
Mhm.
Um, and that's only because as a helper, I have struggled with boundaries. I have struggled with being there for everyone. And so I want my life to represent who I am as a person, and that is a helper, but I want to be doing what God purposed me to do.
Right.
And that is what I'm actively in this season striving for, is to quiet the noise, hear
Mhm.
God, and know that whatever I do for whoever I do it for is within what God wants me to do.
Yes. You want to live with purpose, right? Yeah,
Like that.
that's good. I like it. I like it. I like it. So we're almost done, Lakita. What is like one resource, one book, one tool or object that you would like to share that can help our listeners, um, like with their mind, body, and soul, with their journey of being the healthiest version of themselves that they can be? Is there a book or
You know, I'm gonna go with what I originally thought about, and I just shared this with someone I think at church. And we did it very early on into my Join in Love and Action, is the Bait of Satan. And the Bait of Satan is a book that's all about offense and being offended, but it's about you as a person and, recognizing in different areas and situations that you might be the problem. A lot of times I was the problem. A lot of times, I felt like I was the victim and I justified it, right? I justified my poor actions because I got hurt. Now they deserve it, but at the end of the day, we might have a reason, but we don't have a right.
Mm.
And the beta Satan um, really helps people with that spirit of offense to kind of, what I say, get off your high horse, to do some self-checking and to realize it's not everybody else and sometimes it's us. Now that doesn't mean that it's not somebody else either. But when you always find yourself in a place of whatever situation happens or that's occurred is somebody else's fault, you might be in offense. If you're always the victim, you might be dealing with the spirit of offense. And so how that book really helps us deal with those and to try to break down those barriers so that we can be better.
Good. So the bait of Satan, I wrote it down.
I'm gonna put that on my to be read list.
Yes.
I
yes.
have the book still. I think I can send a picture to you in our group. So
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So real quick, because we don't want to hold you too much longer. What is one piece of advice? If you could just tell someone to do one thing, that's struggling with their mental health, what can they do? I mean, you
I
gave
would,
us a lot already, but
yeah.
if you could just sum it up
Mhm.
and
I would say there's no better time than now. It doesn't matter what you've done up to this point, what you haven't done, what you have done. Um, if there is a need, if you have struggles, there's no better time than now to go seek that for you. You deserve to be happy, to be healthy, to be whole. There's no better time than now to do that for yourself. There's no better time than to set boundaries with other people and not make the excuse that I don't have time to do it. I have to do, I have to be mom, I have to be sister, I have to be granddaughter, and all of those things. I owe it to myself. You owe it to you to do what's best for you in every situation. And so if you've contemplated going to get help, if you've thought about it here or there, if somebody's mentioned it to you and you've shot it out the window, that's okay. There's no better time than now to go and do it. That's what we're here for. Whether you're a mental health professional or not,
right.
we want people to live their best, full, whole lives. And in order to do that, sometimes it takes another resource, and mental health professionals can be that resource.
Good. Good. So, yeah.
One last quick question for you. We'll end it out with some fun. So we like to play a game that's called Healthy Confessions. What is your go-to snack if you're feeling stressed or just need something to kind of get you through the moment?
Okay. I am very much an emotional eater, so it don't matter if I'm happy, sad, in between, I'm gonna eat. But if I had to say that there was a go-to like snack, it probably would be popcorn and M&Ms mixed.
Ooh.
Oh,
I
I
haven't
like the
tried
sweet
that
and
one.
salty. I'm not a
I'll,
huge fan of like the trail mixes, but I like to make homemade popcorn and then just buy a bag of M&Ms, or when I go to the movie theater, buy some M&Ms and throw it in a bag and eat it together.
okay. Now I do popcorn and Raisinets when I'm at the
Okay.
movies, but I've never tried M&Ms. I'm gonna try that next time.
That's probably my go-to.
Okay, okay.
I might have to try that myself.
That sounds good.
It's a little healthy balance, just a little bit. You got your popcorn
Just a
that's
little bit.
good, and then you got a little M&Ms, some chocolate.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
All right. I might have to try that myself.
I like that one. So, how can people reach out to you and find you on social media? Is there a website or email or any specific thing that you'd like to leave us with for people to contact you?
And
Yes,
I
so
know
you
you
guys, yeah, you do have my email address. So I have a couple of different emails. It depends on what sector of things I'm doing, but personally, someone could reach out to me at lakitasharice@gmail.com. And then I also have my business email, which is the Aspire Solutions, and it's Solutions, LLC@gmail.com.
Like, did you say Soul
It
Lucian?
is Soul, Soul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
And
also another way. And then I can share with you guys, I think I put it in our Google Doc, but I can also share with you my Psychology Today link. And that's primarily, especially if it's more business related, individuals can get in touch with me that way.
okay.
Okay, perfect.
Lakita, we need a part two,
Definitely,
right? This could
definitely.
have gone, this seriously, this could have gone on in a couple of different directions. Because you talked about so much, and I believe that this conversation is needed in the African American community, especially, but it's just needed
Yes.
in general.
Thank you. I
It's needed. So
appreciate that.
thank you so very much. We believe everybody deserves to live, and I think you said this, they deserve to live whole, healthy lives.
Absolutely.
Right? So we pray and hope that this topic was beneficial to you, to all of the listeners. We hope that our listeners learned something, and learned why their mental health is important. So we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yes. So you've been
So,
listening to the Soul Session, Mind, Body, and Spirit. Please remember that true wellness begins when all three are in balance. Join us next time as we continue the journey within.
and make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, Miss Lakita.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for having me.
Yes,
It was
thank
a
you.
pleasure.
All right.